Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Mega Man 3, where we're going to finish the whole game. First off, we have to take on the Doc robots and then the Dr. Wily castle. Let's hope we can actually get through a few minutes without Donald boasting even more about his election win, but being realistic, I don't think we're getting lucky on that one.
Even though I will be talking about my fantastic success yet again, I will at least let you all talk about the game for a little while.
Thank you, Donald. I'll have a moment to think about my terrible bet I made off screen that I talked about the last time this game was posted. Ben, I am wondering what exactly is a Doc robot and why are we back in Needleman stage?
That is a good question. The Doc robots are creations of Dr. Wily that take the weapons from the Mega Man 2 robot masters and fight you in a similar way. There are 2 in each level, but unfortunately you don't actually get the weapons from fighting them, which is a disappointment.
Do we have to remember what they were weak to again? I'm not sure we know all which weapons do what.
Since we don't actually get these weapons, we'll have to use the ones we already have, and of course I know the best ones to use. As for the actual stages, they are visually very similar, but as you can tell, the actual level design is quite a bit different. It's not something a lot of people that play this game enjoy, but I think it's nice to go through different versions of levels we're used to.
Since there's this door again, I'm guessing a Doc robot is right around here?
Since there's 8 robot masters and 4 stages, that should mean 2 in each stage.
Rather basic math, but you are correct. First up is Airman, and it is slightly harder since the Leaf Shield isn't here to destroy him so easily, but the Spark Shock is really good against him when the tornadoes aren't blocking it. Granted, he's not that much harder and should go down very quickly.
You haven't even gotten hit at this fight. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I tend to be pretty good at this game. The next section is very unusual in that it requires Rush Jet, but just jumping rather than staying directly on him makes this section significantly easier to handle to where you won't need most of the weapon refills that you'll find over here.
Although the presidents haven't played this game before, I do think this looks like a very strange design. If you fail for whatever reason, it looks like you just have to go back and farm for energy again. Even jumping above Rush Jet seems like an exploit and not good game design, even if it is significantly more convenient. I suppose if that is how you have to do it, then that's fine. On a non-related topic, do you have plans to play through more of these games in the near future?
Actually, yes, I do plan on playing through more of these games for you 3 and the viewers. I know it can be a lot of time in between the videos for games in this specific series, especially the first 2, but I would like to go through the main 11 games. The first 6 are going to be pretty standard, though the later games have much different designs from game to game and may not fit the 2-part structure like we have right now. I was also thinking of playing through some of the sequel series Mega Man X games, since I tend to like most of those. Well, more the first half of the series to be specific, as some of the later ones are not good at all, but that's not until way later.
That sounds good and all, Ben, but did you fight some large guy a moment ago? He seemed to be like a less important boss fight, but you didn't say anything about him.
Yes, that was a lesser fight, so much so that I don't even know his attacks, as I always beat him very quickly, plus there's another identical fight that I'm going to handle the same way.
I thought these games were supposed to be hard, but so far Ben has had very little challenge with anything so far. Even if he did, there's so many energy tanks around that it seems like nothing can pose a threat.
Yeah, not to brag, but I've played this so many times that pretty much all of it is actually really easy to me. This next fight is actually more difficult in general, as it's the Crash Man Doc robot, who is pretty fast and hits hard, but some well-placed hard knuckles make it a quick fight.
I'm still having a difficult time wondering how it is that someone thought Hardman was a good name and other people actually agreed with that.
You are right, but that was yet another quick fight for Ben.
Okay, which stage are we going to now? Does it really matter if we don't even get the weapons at all?
We are going to Shadow Man's level, but no, it doesn't really matter which order these are done in. I'm personally doing them from least favorite to most favorite, but there's no real optimal way I can think of doing it. I do find it noteworthy that in the Mega Man Archie comics and their Mega Man 3 adaptation, Mega Man actually did obtain the Mega Man 2 weapons, plus there was only 1 Doc robot rather than 8 of them.
I don't think most people care about that comic, even if they know it exists. I vaguely remember hearing about it, but I don't think they've made any issues for a decade or something.
I'll tell you my opinion in a moment, but I need to focus on a rather difficult part if you don't use Rush Jet.
But wouldn't it be easier to just use it, though?
Yes, but this game hasn't been very difficult, so I need to challenge myself at some point, so I don't get too bored of having such an easy time for someone as practiced as me.
It seems a little bit like having an ego, but okay, we'll watch you do the difficult thing now.
Oh yeah, I've got this for sure.
Those jumps did look tricky, but I'm glad you got through them all right. What were you saying about those Mega Man comics?
I thought it was pretty good. They made a lot of interesting choices on what to adapt, such as the Robot Masters only seen in Mega Man powered up for the Mega Man 1 adaptation, along with Super Adventure Rockman later on with the stories in the future that shows glimpses of the future for the series. And of course there were the crossovers with the Sonic the Hedgehog comics as well, which were great to see.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody is ever going to start that series up again since I just checked and there hasn't been a new issue in nearly 9 years at this point.
Hey, that makes me think, Ben, are we doing a Sonic the Hedgehog game playthrough at some point? I know we did those tier lists a while ago, but we haven't actually played one of the games for the channel yet.
I hadn't really considered that as something that I was going to play. I think you all have played more Sonic games than I have, so that might be more suited for you than me. There's already a few ongoing playthroughs now, as it is so probably not for a while, but who knows.
Perhaps we can consider that more when we get some more Mega Man and Metal Gear Solid games done, since those are more of the priority right now.
Okay, that sounds good. Also, Ben, we never really got to talk about that Woodman fight or anything that you're doing right now.
Well, the fight was pretty easy with the needle cannon, and this part is much easier than the original level with the magnet missile. Also up ahead, we're fighting the Heatman Doc robot with the Shadow Blade, which is yet another easy fight. We tend to get sidetracked here and stop focusing on the main game like all the time.
I'll admit some of that is due to me winning the election and all of that, which is really a much more entertaining topic than this game, and I don't think I'll stop talking about it anytime soon.
That and my really dumb bet that I'm going to need a way to get myself out of somehow. Not sure if that's going to become a recurring storyline through our videos, since we tend not to do that. Like Joe legalized the purge all year long in a Final Fantasy IV video, and we've barely talked about it.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I think people are just going to have to trust each other whenever that goes into effect and hope nothing bad happens. On the other hand, it won't be my problem as president for long, so that's nice.
Now I see how that's going to become a major problem for me. Oh, and nice job on the fight.
All right, we're done with half of the stages already thanks to my expert level gameplay, so let's just move on to the Sparkman stage. This one has quite a bit more going on since the stage has more challenge, but nothing I can't overcome, of course.
Aren't they all supposed to be more difficult, though? Isn't that the point of them?
In theory, yes, but not really in practice. At this point, you'll have all the weapons and Rush Jet, which can make most challenges trivial, so you have more of a chance to get by entirely on that. Otherwise, it's mainly just easier if you use something like the Shadow Blade or the Magnet Missile, since they're pretty good about hitting most things that come your way. And this is going to continue on for the actual Dr. Wily Castle stages later on.
Wait a minute, there's not even 18 minutes left in the video, and we're going to go through 2 Doc Robot stages and the castle stages still? That seems pretty short. I mean, the other games weren't really long either, but still, it's quite a bit less time than I thought it would take.
You'd think, but no, as much as I'm breezing through these stages, the next ones are even easier, especially the boss fights. Half of the Doc Robots don't put up a fight, including the next one here.
Well, in that case, is there something we can talk about if the game isn't going to be all that difficult? I just watched that Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie a while back and really liked it. Did any of you see that?
Yeah, my family and I went to go see it around the time it came out, and we really liked it. They didn't get all of the intricate references to the games since they haven't played Sonic Adventure 2, but I thought it was an amazing time. I was rather surprised by Keanu Reeves being cast as Shadow, but I'm glad he was there. As much as I enjoyed the first 2 movies and even that Knuckles series to an extent, I didn't really think any of them were great until now. Sonic being the lone character while in a more realistic world just didn't seem as entertaining, but now with the focus actually being on the Sonic characters, this one was a lot better.
I also watched the movie about a week or so after it came out, and yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I hadn't thought much of the other movies since I only saw them once, but I really didn't like that Knuckles show at all, so I was glad this one only had Wade appear for a minute and leave like he should. I mean, Sonic and Tails only showed up in the first episode, and the rest seemed like the Wade show with Knuckles making a cameo from time to time. Who really cares about the bowling when we could have gotten much more backstory on the flames of disaster that Knuckles got by fighting Puppet Iblis? Or however you say his name, it's not something Play HT can say easily. As for the actual movie, it was a good time, and I wouldn't mind watching it again sometime.
I may as well weigh in now, since I've accepted there's an essentially 0% chance you all are going to focus on the game I'm actually playing. I saw the movie and enjoyed it like you all did. Admittedly, I'm not well versed in the games, though I did watch your tier list a while back. My good friend Matt Walsh really didn't like the movie for whatever reason, but I'm not co-signing his objectively wrong opinion. This is a bit of a spoiler to the end credit scene, but I was confused as to who those robots and pink character were. I think her name is Amy and the robots were Metal Sonic, if I remember correctly.
Oh yeah, I remember that scene like it was yesterday. When Amy Rose showed up, I may have moored myself in the theater, but that's only because I was so happy to see my favorite character there. I think that implies some sort of adaptation of Sonic CD, because that's where both of those characters came from at first. Either way, I just want the next movie to star Amy, and I don't even care if the other characters appear at all. I also think a multiple season series starring her would be amazing, but I don't know how likely that will be.
First off, Joe, I don't want you to ever say that you morbed yourself, as that has terrifying implications, but back on topic of that specific scene, it seems odd how there was no real hint on where these characters had come from, but I hope they would explain that later on in the next movie. I do also find it interesting how the movie Sonic the Hedgehog 3 doesn't take almost anything from the actual game. Not that the other movies had as much influence from their respective games either, but something I wanted to mention. I suppose the one shot where Shadow punched the Chaos Emeralds out of Sonic was like the beginning of the game, but I couldn't find anything else that was really similar.
I do think it would be really funny for them to do all of that, and then for Sonic the Hedgehog 4, they make it into a 2-part release years apart and be incredibly faithful to the games. They'd have to make Sonic really shiny and rip off the first 2 movies to be accurate to what the game did. And now that I think about it, what exactly did you like about the Knuckles show, Barack? I didn't enjoy it when I watched it, but you seemed to like it a little more than I did.
I suppose it's more that I thought it was fine than anything else. It was disappointing that Sonic and Tails aren't there for a longer amount of time, but once I accepted that they weren't staying there, I set my expectations accordingly. I did think there were some pretty good moments, such as the small child towards the start being amusing and the plan that Wade makes where he sneaks in to save Knuckles only for him to completely ruin his plan immediately being highlights for me. That and the fact that there's lore from Sonic 06 in the form of a puppet show. Not how I'd prefer it to be implemented, but at least they went all out with the presentation and how bizarre it was.
I hoped we would see more of Knuckles since he is the title of the show, but I don't think that Wade and Knuckles would have sold as well. I did find it odd how the Sonic 3 movie didn't really acknowledge the show at all. Wade only appears for one scene and it's funny, but it makes the show feel like it was more of a waste and that it doesn't play into anything in the actual movies.
Are we really just going to be talking about the Sonic movies now? I mean, I am playing a game here if you hadn't noticed recently. That section I just was at after the Doc Robot was one of the few where you could get stuck if you for some reason used Rush Jet and Coil before. I think that's interesting.
I suppose we can talk about the Mega Man movie adaptation. Ben, do you care to enlighten us on how great of an experience that was?
Okay, point taken, you can talk about whatever game adaptations you want. That's all right, though I do want to bring up a few things when we get to the castle levels.
Since we're on the topic of games into movies, did all of you watch that Super Mario Bros. Movie? I thought it was really good, and I was surprised Chris Pratt did well as Mario since it seemed to be like people thought of it as a joke when that was announced. I got some of the references that they made to other games since it would have been really boring if they just did the first game only since there's not much story and it probably would have been really bad.
For once, I'm glad you actually watched the right movie. I thought you were going to start talking about the live-action one for a moment there. Yeah, I thought it was good, but my favorite part is actually that the Sonic movies combined still haven't made as much money as the Mario one has so far. Not that it means they're worse, but just something to bring up for my own amusement.
I don't have much to say about it that hasn't already been said. Maybe we should do some sort of tier list on video game movies one day. I'm not sure if we should, since some of them are just ones we probably don't have a lot to say about and wouldn't be very interesting. Like there's the Assassin's Creed movie, but I've not actually played any of the games, and even then I barely remember a thing about it anyway. There is one series that could be interesting, being the Resident Evil live-action movies, since those are infamous for their lack of quality. I don't think we'll make a full tier list since there's just so much to talk about, and they aren't movies I want to go through again, but we can mention them here if you all want to for a minute or two.
I can't think of a better time than now to talk about everything wrong with those movies. I had such a bad time watching them that I tried to sue Capcom for wasting my time. I didn't win, so I didn't pay my lawyers a standard, but still.
Actually, before you all start talking about movies that most people don't care about, I did want to mention some incredibly important plot developments here. After Mega Man defeated the last of the Doc Robots, he was able to fight a new enemy named Break Man, who was suspiciously the exact same as the Proto-Man character from previous stages. Once the incredibly easy fight was done, he goes back to the lab to see that Dr. Wily took Gamma and is going to use it for nefarious purposes.
Oh wow, Dr. Wily is the bad guy in a Mega Man game that is really quite the plot twist, Ben. Anyway, the Resident Evil movies are pretty much all garbage that you shouldn't waste your time with. The only one that was okay was the first one, and that's because even though it didn't feature pretty much any characters from the games, it at least was mostly consistent with the tone of the first game and had characters that at least had some intrigue, unlike later movies. I think it would have been way better if it was closer to the games, but what was here wasn't awful. If there's one live-action movie in the series you have to watch, then this is the one.
I have to agree with you, Donald, though. I think there's at least a few good qualities in the later movies, though. When I say that, I mean there's a few individual scenes or design choices that aren't bad, but nothing that saves any of them from being really bad. Ben, since there's basically no chance we're talking about Mega Man for a while, do you have any comments on our topic now?
Yeah, I might as well at this point. There's like 8 other games in the classic series, and it's better than more arguing about politics like last time, so I need to count my blessings while I can. I am in agreement with you all so far, and even though Resident Evil Apocalypse was also pretty bad, it had a few good things going for it. Nemesis looked really good, even though he wasn't as threatening and didn't transform. If I remember correctly, he is actually the most successful at his goal of eliminating STARS members as opposed to his game counterpart, where I suppose he kills Brad in the remake version where he literally holds Jill's head in his head more than once and still fails.
I did think an actual attempt at adapting a game this time was weird to start for the second movie, but I don't know if it worked out. Jill shooting people in the police station was really weird since you'd think someone would have shot back, but no people just understood exactly what she was doing, and it all works out. Most of the characters don't even get to do the things they did in the game, so it's hard to compare. The villains of the third game appear for a little while, but they die so soon that there's no way to know if they would have been like their counterpart. It also starts a really bad trend of making Alice the most overpowered character in the whole series at the expense of everything else.
Wow, that was the most coherent thing I've heard you say in a long time. Maybe you should watch these movies more if it makes you speak this well compared to everything else we have to listen to from you.
Is there even the slightest chance any of you are interested in the fight I'm doing or not really?
No, I think we got the idea when you just started spinning into those turtles and that somehow caused it to blow up. For the first fight in the Wily stages, it wasn't all that remarkable to watch, nor was it all that threatening based on the items it just hands you without any difficulty.
Yeah, I didn't think there was much to look at, so I'd rather just talk about these game adaptations while Ben plays through these really easy levels. I actually also watched those Silent Hill movies a little while ago, and I thought they were entertaining. I only played the Silent Hill 2 remake, so I'm not well versed in the series, but I thought the movies were fun. I definitely liked the first one more, as it seemed to actually be a little scarier, but the next one just wasn't.
I'm surprised you even tried watching those movies, since I'm pretty sure you wet yourself watching The Nightmare Before Christmas, so Silent Hill didn't seem possible for someone like you. I'm also absolutely sure any deeper themes about the games or even the movies would have flown way over your head, so maybe it's best that you stick with what you've played and watched there.
No, that just kind of happens to me sometimes, but yes, I was very scared watching The Nightmare Before Christmas, and I'm terrified that the idea of it being in that Kingdom Hearts game is a possibility. Not that I'd know soon, since we haven't uploaded anything in that series for a while. Or even any series for a while, since it's been a few months since we've gotten anything up on the channel.
Hold up, Joe, before we break the fourth wall too hard. Ben, did that section really give you 2 energy tanks? There was literally no risk of dying with Rush Jet, and it's just handing them out like candy? I know these games are generally considered difficult, but is that really necessary?
Okay, I'll admit the difficulty of the game really goes down a lot after the dock robots, so I can't really justify it, and it's not going to get that much harder as the levels continue. This one kind of warrants 1, since it is another Yellow Devil fight, but it's not as difficult since it takes more damage to the Shadow Blade and it's another predictable pattern. No, you wouldn't really need 2 energy tanks unless you're really new to the series, but most people playing these games now probably have some experience, or they're playing on the Legacy Collection with rewinds and save states.
I suppose so, but you're at 7 energy tanks now, and you'll probably get the maximum by the time you get through to the last stage. I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad design choice if you're newer, but as someone who isn't well versed in the series, it just looks really unbalanced when these levels should, in theory, be the most difficult. Even though the first game had a lot more difficult fights in general, it at least flowed nicely as being a step up from the previous levels from what I saw, despite some energy tanks being useful if they were designed at that time. In Mega Man 2, they also looked fairly challenging for good reason, except that one with the crash bomb walls. This just looks worse by comparison.
At least you're talking about the game, although not in the way I was hoping you would. Maybe whenever we get to the next game in the series, we'll be able to have a better discussion about the actual gameplay instead of spending multiple minutes talking about anything else.
I mean, we could talk more about my presidency and revoking all those amendments I said I was going to last time a few months ago. Or we could talk about Barack losing his entire life to a bet he made off screen. Or we could talk about that time Joe legalized the purge all year long. Or about you losing Daily Wire Plus or any of the extended President Central lore that we bring up from time to time.
Or we can talk about that free energy tank that the game requires you spend 3 seconds getting it with nothing in the way at all.
Or we can talk about these weird space light things. I'm not sure how they make this area more difficult, but they look kind of cool.
There's not much to talk about. They just make it so you don't always know where the grenade enemies are jumping to and where you could go, but there's no instant kill hazards there to make it more of a danger, so they don't do all that much. I've just accepted that this game is way easier, which makes it less compelling to talk about. I mean, it's not like Metal Gear Solid to where we could fall back on Joe getting infatuated with every other person, since basically everybody here is a guy, a robot, or combination of both except Roll.
Let's not talk about Roll, since Joe will start acting up and then we're all going to regret being here.
I'm about to get equipped with Search Snake, if you know what I mean.
Very disturbing that it's actually on topic, as it's the weakness to the next fight with 3 copy robots that will shoot at you and run back and forth.
Wait, what, you just started and now the fight's already over? What even happened there?
So the weakness is the Search Snake, like I mentioned, but how the fight works is only one of the 3 is actually able to be hit with weapons, while the other is fake, despite the fact that all of their shots hurt you. The thing is, the top one will always be the one that is solid, so if you're fast enough, you can shoot it without it being able to do really anything. It's a little difficult to get up so quickly, but if you can, then the fight is over in a couple of seconds.
That seems both pathetic how easy it is, but also it's the only time you have to have a decent strategy compared to the other 2 fights where it was spin into turtles with no risk of getting hit, or fight an easier Yellow Devil with 12 energy tanks ready to heal you immediately.
Is there any chance that there's a difficult fight ahead, so we'll have something more to talk about than how easy this game is?
No, in fact, this level just has the Robot Master rematches, which, like before, we're going to skip since we've already fought them and you already know what they're like.
Okay, good to know. Let's see them all lose in a quick montage.
Wow, that was very exciting. I can only imagine what else Dr. Wily threw together in 5 minutes that will take Mega Man all of 5 seconds to destroy.
I'll just tell you so you aren't surprised, it's 2 boss fights with no actual level to go through, with both of them having 2 phases, none of which are difficult. This next one is 2 legs that it walks really slowly with, and when you get the first health bar down, you can just use Rush Jet to get the second one down. It's one of the only times the Spark Shock is useful, and it's for a couple of seconds. I know you all aren't going to have much to talk about with this one, aside from it being really easy like you have been the past few minutes.
Sorry, we're not actually enjoying the game so much like you hoped we all would. We haven't played this, and yes, while you're doing well, it makes it look too easy, and nothing that we're seeing really sticks with us enough to talk about for more than a moment or so. That's why we just talk about other things sometimes, so yes, we will hopefully have more to talk about when the next game comes up in the series.
It's all right, maybe I should have expected something like this after all. There are quite a few options in the series that we could do. There's Mega Man 4, obviously, but there's also Mega Man X in the Game Boy game, since those I don't think have been done by any presidents before. Then again, maybe we should focus on the games we're already playing before we move on to yet another game to start.
Yeah, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. We have a lot more to finish before starting something new. Let's just finish this and move on from there. I see the game offered yet another energy tank that you didn't even get since you don't really need it.
I can only imagine what is coming up next for Ben to get through in less than 30 seconds.
Seems like quite the big guy. He looks a little more threatening than the last fight, but that's not really saying a lot.
Just go up here and then use the Shadow Blade or the Hard Knuckle, and the first part is down very quickly. You don't even have to jump using the Hard Knuckle, making it even easier. Then for the next part, just jump with the top spin, and that's it. The game is over just like that.
Do we even need to tell you how anticlimactic that was? Using the worst weapon in the game and ending the fight so quickly? I can only imagine how long this game was actually tested for. Probably not all that long based on how the whole castle area took about 8 minutes. Maybe 10 if the Robot Masters weren't edited out.
Okay, I get it. This was a really easy experience for me. The point has been well made by now. For the moment, I just need to enjoy the last part of the game without any interruptions or complaints.
All right, fine, we'll be quiet for a moment.
Well, that was a very blatant way to get the editor a break from adding our dialogue and faces in there for a minute. Anyways, Mega Man 3 seems like a good game, but the second half just seems worse when you consider how the Doc Robot stages looked visually less unique and the Wily stages just seem too easy with all the energy tanks and lives they throw at you. I can only hope Mega Man 4 comes through as a much better time for us.
If it helps anything, Ben, your actual performance was quite good, and as easy as it was at times, it would have been a way worse viewing experience in our perspective if you just constantly failed at keeping Mega Man alive. You did well, and I'm glad it was you playing out of the 4 of us.
Yeah, I did enjoy seeing all of the jumping and shooting for the most part. We did get distracted by a lot in both parts, but it was a nice time to be here and watch you play for a while.
Thanks, guys, and sorry if I seemed upset you all weren't focusing on the game so much. I can't expect it to always stay on topic like we typically do, and I'll try to keep that in mind whenever we get to the next game. That probably won't be for a while, but we won't know until we get there. We should be able to get both parts out in a more timely manner without such a delay like it took this time. It was a necessary delay, but still the point remains.
I'm glad you understand. Next time for us, we'll probably be getting through the next of the Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty parts, since there's probably half the game we haven't played yet, but we won't know exactly how long that will take us. Either way, once the credits are done, we'll move on to something else for the meantime. Donald will continue his new presidency. I'll be getting my life back together after that really dumb bet. Joe probably won't have much to do since he's not the president anymore. Ben, I have no idea what you'll do, but once we're back together for another session, I'm sure it will be fun. And to the viewers, thank you for being understanding about the time off. It really does mean a lot to have the support you all have given.
With all that said, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
And peace out, people.